Hi, this is Jeff Mesnick. I'm reporting for Vestigo Ventures and Vision newsletter, and I'm here today with Mark Enriquez from Frictionless Markets. How you doing today, Mark?
Well, thanks. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. So today we're going to try to, break down what ICOs are. How's that sound to you?
Sounds great.
So I think for a lot of our listeners and readers, the first thing we should do is really help them understand what does ICO even stand for?
Well, an ICO, it's sort of a play on the IPO, the initial public offering, but it's an initial coin offering. So it's a vehicle whereby companies and organizations use distributed ledger technology to issue tokens, which can represent ownership in a firm. It can represent an economic interest in a stream of profits from a product, or most popularly, it is a prepaid form of consumption of the product the company will eventually produce.
Okay. So why would a company issue it in this way? So I mean, we're talking about issuing, basically paying money for this kind of coin, virtual
Exactly.
coin, so to speak. So why would a company issue these? Is it to fund? Is it to sell products? How would you kind of define it?
Primarily, it's to fund. The reason why it's been so popular is that you have global reach. Unlike traditional vehicles of raising funds, you can instantaneously access capital around the globe. Technically, there are some serious legal restrictions depending on where you're domiciled, but it has become a very popular way for firms to very quickly write up what people refer to as a white paper, produce a little video, and then ask people to contribute funds to their company, which will allow them to eventually develop a product.
Excellent. So do you have any kind of examples of some legitimate businesses that may have started this way or have used this to fund themselves?
Uh, the jury's going to still be out on legitimate because, unfortunately, with the land rush mentality that is out there right now in the ICOs, several billions of dollars have been raised, mostly in 2017, by firms in early stages. And in fact, of the couple hundred, I don't know the exact number, but it could be approaching 1,000 of these ICOs. I would say the vast majority of them are in a pre-development stage where they're just pulling the team together. They have a vague product idea, and you're really funding at the early onset. There's been some spectacularly successful offerings. Filecoin is the largest at 250 million. But there are a number of examples of people literally raising tens of millions of dollars in a matter of minutes,
Wow.
which any entrepreneur out there who has gone out on their hands and knees to venture capital and sold their soul, it's just extremely attractive to offer out the concept and have hopefully thousands, if not tens of thousands, of people contribute small amounts of money and get you to the number that you need to launch your product. So the investors or purchasers of these initial coin offerings have to be very aware that they're typically early stage, very early stage, and there's no guarantee of success at all.
So when they use these coin offerings, are they getting that in exchange for stock, options in the company? How's that working?
Very rarely, I have not seen very many examples of someone actually getting an equity position. So that is the huge difference between an ICO and an IPO,
Right.
where in the initial public offering, you are actually becoming an equity owner. And if you're a US domiciled investor, you have all the rights and protections guaranteed by the Securities and Exchange Commission. The vast majority of ICOs, you're buying basically a giant Starbucks card, a prepaid card
Yep.
that will allow you to consume the products eventually offered by the firm. Typically, ICOs are offered for the early investors at discounts to the market rate that they artificially create.
Hmm.
And the hope is that the product becomes so successful that the value of the coin appreciates because people need to, in this sort of crypto economic model, need to purchase the token to consume the product that is being offered. So the notion is that you're betting on the success of the product. Right now, to be quite honest, most of the ICOs that I see are purely speculative efforts where someone sees an idea and thinks, okay, maybe I'm buying this for some fraction of a penny, and at some point I can sell it for 2 cents and make 500%.
Right. Okay.
But
Interesting.
you're buying a prepaid Starbucks card.
Ha, that's a great way to look at it. I like that because it really gives someone a little bit more of a tangible connection to what it is that they're buying, which goes to that next question, which is, so clearly the difference between maybe a Kickstarter type of campaign and an ICO would be more that the Kickstarter campaign is buying equity while the ICO is buying product. Does that make sense?
Precisely.
Okay.
So it's a very different animal.
Yeah.
And I think as anyone who's ever invested can attest that when you have a situation where something is hot at the moment, all sorts of scam artists appear.
Right.
And there was actually an indictment today. The SEC brought action against an ICO issuer, basically saying that there was a Ponzi type scheme. So you really, really have to be careful. You have to read everything you can. I would not invest anywhere where I don't see the full names of the principals, where they're located. I want to see a company office because there's a number of these I've seen that really don't even list a physical address.
Right.
I would be very leery to purchase any of these that are outside jurisdictions that have strong rule of law and investor right legislation. If I'm a U.S. investor, I would stick to the U.S. The last thing you want to do is some Eastern European company, if you have a problem, go to Eastern Europe and hire a lawyer. You really want to avoid that.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, basically, we kind of talked about this before we started the interview. There is a bunch of risks because, ICOs don't necessarily fall in line with the securities acts. Is that correct? Or
correct. Well, the SEC has already started a cyber unit, and they're going to follow the dictum: if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. So if you're selling something that looks security-like, that has an asset component to it, even if that asset is some future consumption, and people are buying it with the notion that it's going to increase in value, then those issuances will fall under SEC regulations. So whether or not the issuer decides to follow the letter of the law or not is immaterial, because eventually I think the SEC will catch up. And if you don't know if you're an issuer and you don't know the customer, if they should be accredited investors and they're not accredited investors, if you're not providing all the disclosure information that you would have to provide in any kind of private offering or initial public offering, I think eventually you're skating on thin ice, and the SEC will catch up at some point. Might take a while,
right?
But I think eventually they'll catch up. Which is a good thing for U.S. based investors.
That's what I was going to ask next. I was like, so basically, do you think it's a good thing for the Securities and Exchange Commission to come down and kind of create regulations around this? Is that supportive of the overall project, or does that hurt the market a bit?
Well, if I was an issuer, I would say, well, it's going to slow me down.
Right.
Because now I still have to go out and get an SEC lawyer. I have to do all the disclosures, but they're there for a reason. And you can take two approaches. I've done a few ICOs with a trivial amount of money. We're talking a couple $100. Mm-hmm. So if it blows up, I'm not eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches tomorrow.
Right.
But if I were to do a larger investment, then yes, I would want to see all the proper disclosures. So sort of two camps. One, the more libertarian, anarcho-capitalist kind of guys that say, let's just let the market figure it out and let unleash the creativity. And I think eventually, sort of this whole crypto economics will allow for a faster accumulation of capital for the funding of venture efforts. I think it will reduce the cost to entrepreneurs, which are all good things. I mean, having gone through angel investing rounds, you spend a lot of time and you give up a lot of equity. And so if you can not give it up as much equity or any equity and basically convince people that your product is sufficiently interesting that they will buy your tokens that people eventually need to purchase from you to consume the product, then I think that's a win-win for everybody. I think it allows people to unleash entrepreneurial talent more rapidly than is the current sort of state of the world.
Well, this has been great. I'm actually looking forward to kind of hearing more, maybe getting back in touch with you in the future to see how well your ICOs that you've purchased have done. Whether you actually got the Starbucks gift card at the 15% discount that you were hoping for, or 50% or 100%.
And I'm sure for a lot of these ICOs, you'd rather get the Starbucks card because at least you can get a cup of coffee.
Right. That sounds great. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you, Mark. And once again, this is reporting for Envisions, the newsletter from Vestigo Ventures. And I'm here with Mark Enriquez from Frictionless Markets. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
You too.